If anyone's to blame, it's Alan Titchmarsh. I interviewed him a few years ago, and since then, without permission, used him as a pen name to promote my articles, although I go by A. Titchmarsh to make it more ambiguous. I've interviewed all of the great and the good in the celebrity gardening world, which is why my cohort at the Post thrust me on the flames and said I should take on the Christmas feature, as they lied that they had only amassed some reactionary sound bites from folk on the street. Ipso facto, I was to walk on hot coals, because this year the Christmas feature had a prominent interview as its main conceit. But I just made up what the celebrity gardeners had said to me, as I had more interesting answers to my own questions than they did. So it was doomed from the start. Christmas feature always burns its maker. That's why it's known in the office as the redundancy package. The research team received the scoop from a Hudson Bay-based trader. He and his mates were on a half-baked extreme stag weekend trekking across a polar tundra region all dressed as bananas. For legal reasons, we've had to change the names of key people and places, so let's call it the South Pole. All of the traders' group, including the groom, sadly perished in the cold, and so he was left stranded, snow swallowing him up, breath puffing to a halt. But he was miraculously saved. It was likely a hallucination brought on by the extreme trauma, but the trader, who we shall call Hugh Fernley Whittingstall, claimed he was rescued by the religious mascot and children's toy manufacturer St. Nicholas. Santa, of course, if you can suspend your disbelief, is shrouded in mystery and folklore, the spirit of jollity, worship demigod, a social construct that justifies materialism as an act of faith. But bloody Hugh Fernley Whittingstall managed to get himself out of there somehow. So we at the Post decided to investigate. We found the place where he was lost, and we found something there. Now, I'm a rational skeptic who doesn't believe that a present-giving fat fairy exists because there's no such thing as a free gift. But I'm also a reporter, and I've got to sell the papers. So, this is my story of a strange polar weekend. The article title we plucked for in the end was Santa Maybe? It features interviews about life, philosophy, and Christmas with the heart-beating biological oddity Santa Claus. It all materialised on a foggy January eve. My editor, who should be referred to as Oprah Winfrey, had spent her career looking to drill out a strong blockbuster Christmas feature that shafts our competitors into bankruptcy court, all in the holiday spirit. We were still recovering from last year's disastrous feature, The 12 Ready Meals of Christmas, and so we were in desperate need to find some really classy kitsch that gets us some more bums on seats. Despair had taken the office as we headed towards an inevitable car crash article with the working title The Weather Spotter's Guide to Snow, outlining a scale of different water contents from snow to slush. Oprah was pissed, and so when one of our interns rocked up with a letter written in glitter pen that had quote-unquote come down her chimney after a chance meeting with Hugh Fernley Whittingstall on a posh millennial spiritual vacation, she was promoted with a bonus before she could say 0-hour contract. I thought an interview with the real Santa Claus was a fanciful gimmick that was beneath our reputation, but Oprah saw it as a documentarian expose piece. The phrase "people will read anything" appeared regularly in our email exchanges, and so it was not long before we were greenlit and I was waiting for a ship to take myself and the research team to the South Pole. Oprah had no sense of humour, or rather I never knew whether she was making a joke or a threat. Her parting words were, "You better watch out, you better not cry, or you're fired." T.S. Eliot once said, "Truth has rough flavours if we bite it through." Much the same could be said for the rubbery chicken sandwich which I ate on the boat. The crossing was uncomfortable. I get queasy on a bendy bus, so I struggled not to regurgitate on the local sea life which followed our ship. We saw narwhals, orca, walruses, all brutally trying to murder each other until a giant humpback whale belly-flopped on top of them all. I took the opportunity to speak with our intern who received Santa's letter. Let's call her Delia Smith. Delia, tell me more about this message coming down your chimney.
I was in Jaipur on holiday and I met this interesting guy.
Hugh Fernley Whittingstall.
Yeah, that's right. He told me his story. Really tragic circumstances, but I thought there was something in this Santa Claus conspiracy. So I eventually managed to weasel geotags and contact details out of him, but as you may have guessed, Santa really keeps himself to himself and is protected by UN intelligence barriers, you name it. But Hugh said we can't go directly to him, he has to come to us. I had to do all these sort of strange procedures, like I sent an email to Equal Rights for Snow People at gmail.com with the entire lyrics of Ding Dong Merrily on High as the subject header.
Well, it sounds like a scam.
No, this is how spooks operate. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. So anyway, I get a reply back within seconds saying, "Dear Miss Smith, we acknowledge your recent correspondence with us. As you'll be entering a high security area, please send us the name of your organization, few contact details, date of birth, place of residence, passport photo, national insurance number, yada yada. So we can create non-disclosure forms, set up a secure account, which will be used for untraceable correspondence with the South Pole. Yours faithfully, Frosty the Snowman. So, I spent most of the night decoding what they meant by Frosty the Snowman, but all that I got was that it's an anagram of Namstrath Weffinas.
And what does that mean?
Google Translate gave me nothing, so I've no idea.
I feel I can see next year's Christmas feature headline already, Frosty the Embezzler.
Yeah, well, you would find that funny, wouldn't you? But just remember who set this baby up. So what if fake funds get transferred? $2 billion appears in the account? Who cares? I don't, because it'll be instantaneously removed as if it never really existed. Huh? And Frosty the Snowman, well, he doesn't exist either. I'm just being a journalist. Is that something you know how to do?
Look, I didn't mention anything about fund transfers.
Well, they never existed.
So what was in the letter you received?
A geotag and contact details.
But I thought you already had them.
Yes, but this was a confirmation.
What about the disclosure forms?
Lost in the post. But listen, we then email Santa's publicity team. After a bit of negotiation with the South Pole Embassy, turns out we don't need the forms. The meeting is set up. We get the okay. We're given the exclusive interview of the year, arguably the exclusive interview of the 21st century.
Well, thank you for your work in getting this on its feet, Delia. We arrived at our destination, and I felt the uncivilized cold wriggle into me. It was harsh, bare, and there was no Wi-Fi. I wasn't expecting much, perhaps a plonker with a fake beard or an MDF cabin with a few fairy lights, but no, there was just an unmarked van. We looked around for the driver, but it was empty. The boat and other passengers simply disappeared. We couldn't get in touch with anyone, and it began to get dark. I shuddered at the thought of joining the skeletons from the ill-fated stag do frozen in novelty costumes. Suddenly, a rattling noise came from under the van, and 3 strange purple creatures crawled out and peered at us. My rational mind didn't know how to fully compute what apparently was 3 of Santa's elves who'd come to pick us up off the boat. I thought it may have been the seasickness making me hallucinate, but I seriously reassessed whether it was time for a redundancy package and an early retirement. We stood in stunned silence.
Wait. Let me try something. Namstrath Weffinas.
Still nothing. I thought I should better lead the negotiations. We're here for the Santa interview? The elf replied in a high-pitched shrill.
Hello. My name is Bertolt, and these are my colleagues Wolfgang and Matilda. If you can follow me, we will take you to the cabin now.
The elves led us into the back of the van and started blindfolding each one of us. I was averse to this idea, but the only alternative was to join the frozen bananas. I kept reassuring myself it had to be prosthetics or some form of special effects. The elves drove us out to a soundless, windless pass where the ground was deep, crisp and even, for lack of a better phrase. It was like walking on marzipan. When we got there, we were slapped across the face with a fully functional Stark grotto like an upright middle finger sticking out of the snow. It was surrounded by sentient trees that looked like Jim Henson puppets. They giggled and mocked us when we dragged our luggage out of the van and into the cabin. I didn't expect luxury accommodation, but it looked barely habitable. Nothing about it screamed Christmas joy. The interiors were likewise bare, with the occasional stuffed fish and rustic farm equipment mounted on the walls. Santa's facilities were fairly basic. The elves showed us to our rooms. I prepared some of my initial questions as the sun went down, although I spent most of the time questioning myself. I thought this was going to be a jolly in Lapland, but now I didn't know what Oprah had got me in for. All Stanley Kubrick had when he faked the moon landing was a spacesuit and papier-mâché. I was fairly restless, so I had some eggnog, which did nothing to help. If anything, it made it worse. I felt as if a curtain was about to be unveiled and I was the fool on a reality TV show. They left me to stew for a while. Finally, Bertolt quietly ushered me to a chapel on the west side of the cabin. I waited anxiously outside the thick oak doors. I thought this must be some form of setup, a blind date, or God forbid an awards ceremony. Without a push, Bertolt simply asked the doors to open, and so they did. Like a phone alert in the middle of the night, I winced at the brightness, and once my eyes adjusted, there upon a towering throne sat the big man himself. He was nothing like the Coca-Cola advert had illustrated. I gave in to this camp mythical creature before me like losing the willpower to resist demolishing a box of chocolates. There in front of me, eating a fluffy scone with apricot jam, was Santa Claus. My first thought was, where on earth does he get his apricots from? Strangely, this disbelief seemed to outweigh the existence of Santa himself and the surreal exchanges that had already occurred.
What are you doing down there?
I'm the interviewer, Your Grace.
Well, should you not be the one asking the questions then?
Yes, how many languages do you speak?
20.
What's your signature dish?
Kedgeree.
Favourite Spice Girl?
Ginger.
Least favourite Spice Girl?
Turmeric.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What time do you get up in the morning?
I hardly sleep at this time of year.
When do you feel most nervous?
I get edgy a few days before Christmas.
Ideal first date?
I don't know, something outdoors, rock climbing.
What do you do on a night in?
After a busy week, I have a bath, make sure I'm nice and clean, maybe watch a movie or TV. Big fan of antique shows.
Favourite film?
Groundhog Day, probably.
Do you ever host dinner parties?
Oh, I love to host dinner parties. Who doesn't? Although it's always just me and the elves, but we're more than just a family, we're work colleagues.
Would you ever shave the beard?
No, I keep addresses in there.
If you were on an unstoppable train heading for 3 people, but you couldn't change the direction of the train onto a track that only had 1 person,
I'd reliably be able to save the lives of all involved.
it's more of a thought experiment.
I'd alert the authorities then.
Okay, well, if you were stuck on a desert island, actually, I'll skip that one. What happened to the fat polar bear?
You what?
I said, what happened to the fat polar bear?
Is that a cracker joke?
Yes.
Listen, I've been very lenient entertaining this interview, but I specifically asked for no crass cracker jokes in our contract. That was the deal. You think because it's Christmas that cracker jokes will appeal to me? This is my serious job, my being, who I am. The air I breathe is Christmas morning, afternoon and night. I do not leave this back at the office. Christmas breakfast, Christmas lunch, Christmas dinner, every day is Christmas. You're not called Father Journalist, are you? You wouldn't last a day doing what I do.
Well, that broke the ice. It wasn't going as expected. I began the article to build some momentum. Santa, cheeky, chirpy, and Christmas. Prep up your Yule logs. We at the Post are so excited and privileged to give you the world's first exclusive interview with the spirit of Xmas himself, Kris Kringle. Santa opened up to us about what he does in his spare time and his love for hosting a big Chrissy din-din. Dumplings, darling, said Santa. I just absolutely love 'em. Can't have a dinner party without dumplings. Making up the article is a double-edged sword, as it made me realise I could have done this on my iPad at home watching Game of Thrones like the yuppie I am. I needed to dig deeper. Being provocative always worked with the celebrity gardeners. This looks disgusting.
I beg your pardon?
The turkey looks as dry as your scalp, Santa, and shame on you. There isn't any cranberry sauce. Very disappointing.
Right, that's it. I told you, you're a guest in my house. Too nice, they say to me. Too bloody generous. I'm a mug. That's what I am.
Please, Santa, be patient. Give them a chance. You did the same to me and my family when we were down on our luck and we couldn't pay for little Fritz's triple bypass. He may also be very useful to us.
Well, quite right, Bertolt. Here, why don't you try the food first before passing comment?
Oh, don't you worry, I will. I was disheartened to find it was utterly delicious. Santa's moist turkey was served with a dribbling pumpkin pie and a thick and gloopy clapshot, all for a wholesale price deal, delivery included, meaning it was fresh, frozen and simple to cook. No faffing in the kitchen needed, so Santa could spend more quality time with his guests rather than getting hot under the collar, grueling by the stove. We finished with a boozy, fruity figgy pudding, a cup of good cheer and an after 8. Where do you get all of this from?
Waitrose, of course.
They deliver out here?
Mm-hmm.
Day 1 had been a disaster. I'd rubbed St. Nick up the wrong way and it was going to be an uphill battle here on in. Oprah's parting threat returned to me. I couldn't sleep. It was still quite light outside, so I went for a gander. In desperation, I interviewed a silver birch which was as high as a kite. Well, hello there, little fella. I'm the happiest Christmas tree. You're not a conifer, though, are you? Well, I can be whatever the hell I want to be. Now you've made me the marginally less happy Christmas tree. I returned to my room. I thought about Nick. I don't say this about many people, but he did have some aura about him. Perhaps it was the heady smell of potpourri that seemed to follow him. Thoughts niggled on my mind. Contemporary houses don't build in chimneys. There were parts missing, which I thought would be more obvious. Nick seemed suitably odd for an immortal who lives and breathes Christmas all year long. He had strange mannerisms. He seemed to cough and spit regularly or get a fright if he saw himself in the mirror. He constantly fiddled and itched his beard like a comfort blanket. As I wandered around the cabin, I heard a strange whirring noise. The source was coming from the snuggery. I found Santa revolving on a giant gyroscope at great speed. It was like yoga meets astronaut training. He noticed me and slowed down to a halt.
Can't sleep?
No.
Come and get a brandy then, son.
He lit a giant cigar, and I sat smoking and drinking with Nick into the small hours. It was he, this time, that broke the ice.
Why do you want to do this? Find out about me. Aren't you interesting enough yourself?
I'm just doing my job, mate.
I detect you are one who says rather than one who does. Am I right?
Well, if you really are Santa Claus, then you already know the answer to that. You've probably been in my bedroom, which is a bit disturbing now that I think about it.
No. You've got the wrong idea about me. It's all contracts, big contracts, with all major manufacturers. I've outsourced my work like any reasonably minded CEO would do, and luckily the brand has grown and we distribute further and further each year. We've still got some workshops here, and I still take the sleigh out on Christmas Eve to a few folk, but it's ceremonial more than anything else.
Well, that bursts the bubble a bit.
I don't know, I've come up with some pretty cool things, though. I see myself as an artist. I create and I invent. I've got the perfect retreat where I can do whatever I want. But unlike a lot of people think, I don't know every kid in the world. I have some archive data, though, and I did actually look you up before you got here.
And?
Pokemon Blue Christmas 99.
That proves it then, you're the real McCoy.
Ho, ho, ho!
But what I don't understand is why you're so secretive.
I don't like the paps, you see.
But you've invited me in.
True. Perhaps a necessary evil.
What about Mrs. Claus? Where is she?
I've had many partners. It's sad, though, I've outlived them all. People become like toys. They don't last. They break.
Children?
Well, I'm Father Christmas, aren't I? All the children in the world are my children. As long as I just keep doing what I'm doing.
But why do you do what you do? Toy is the harsh location. You could go anywhere.
It's in my nature. Reindeer are made to fly. I'm made to do this.
Of course, most reindeer don't fly.
I find that hard to believe.
Are you religious?
I'm an immortal gift-giving saint. Of course I'm religious.
Do you pay taxes?
I think that's enough for tonight.
I woke up early the next day to go fishing with Santa. I told my research team about the night before and that I got more out of him when he was alone. They happily went to play with reject toys that didn't get past quality control. What's your diet like? You get some deliveries?
I try to be self-sufficient. Trust me, you can't always rely on deliveries. I keep a balanced diet, though. Fish, we have some hot houses for veggies. The deer, of course.
You eat the reindeer?
Yeah, of course.
I thought they were pets. There's no Rudolph.
Oh, long dead and stuffed. We're using that luminescent tumour on his nose as an emergency nightlight.
Santa pulled a fish out with his rod, and as if by magic he turned it into fish fingers. In fact, he used a George Foreman compact travel grill, which is an inexpensive and practical bit of kit to take into the great outdoors.
Please, eat.
The fish finger melted in my mouth, flaky, fresh, and 100% organic. How do you justify eating these animals?
They have a good, long, decent life, and food is scarce. We can't afford to be picky. We keep the population stable. If there were too many reindeer, they would run out of food themselves and starve. It's all about balance, positive, negative, north, south. There are some bears around here. One of the elves, Albrecht, he was taken by a great bear which lives beyond the brow further than those trees. I jumped on my skidoo with Bertolt, Batilda and Hildy. We tracked it down. We were too late for Albrecht, sadly. The bear then attacked me. Absolutely colossal weight, but no matter what it did, I could not be killed.
What's it like being immortal?
What's it like being mortal?
Later, Santa showed me the elves' workshops, which were in bunkers underneath the cabin. Watching Santa strategize like a great admiral of the fleet was an exercise in leadership. He was both one of the team but also an unquestionable authority. Are the elves happy in what they do?
Yeah, I think so. I care very much for them. A lot of the toy making is quite therapeutic and rehabilitating, so they build new skills, relationships and lives.
You make it sound like they had another life somewhere else.
Well, my boy, that is the final stop on our tour, where I think most of your questions will be answered. But first, eat this Waitrose Granny Smith apple, hand-picked, in season, and irresistible.
Indeed, the apple was delicious, but there was something sinister about this final comment, and I felt more than ever I was in a cabin-in-the-woods horror film. Santa led me to where the waste materials from the production line were. Scraps of wood, plastics, and metal lay dead in sacks beneath a hatch. He pressed the button and the hatch opened, revealing the gyroscope room I had seen the night before. The waste began to float into the gyro, defying gravity.
It's not magic, just magnetism. Well, strap yourself in then, sonny.
What?
Go on, you won't get another chance at this. And believe me, this will give you a hell of a lot to write about.
What choice did I have? I climbed into the sack attached to the side of the gyro and strapped into the harness. Nervously, I waited and tried to just think about my Christmas bonus. The gyroscope started slowly building momentum. Faster and faster it built up the speed until all I saw was a blur. Flashes of light sparked in the room and I felt a strong force pressing against me. We got faster until it was hard to know whether we were going faster or slower. Reality began to peel away like the wrappings of a gift, and I entered a land of opposites that was far beyond the scope of my pulp article. The realm ceaselessly moved as if it were underwater. Beings existed that were there or not there. Planets waltzed with each other around a singing sun, and carnivals poured from the skies like snowfall. We crashed onto a plain of ice, and I unbuckled from the gyro. I reached out and was shocked with the static electricity that surrounded me. My body turned into pieces, disconnected to me, and I felt a youthful energy turn me both young and old. Santa was now a thinner, younger, beardless spirit robed in green. The research team and the banana men from the stag do swam by as if that were the obvious thing to do. Delia Smith sang nursery rhymes with Frosty the Snowman gaily skipping into the ether. Elves marched in unison, mining at the waste materials that flew out of the sacks in the gyroscope. They turned the matter into thin air by moving it back and forth rhythmically, as if they were pistons in a locomotive, until solid became liquid and liquid became gas. An audience of elves watched on as Santa and I moved towards a stage. Finally, I threw up.
Ladies and gentlemen, little did he know, but all you viewers at home have been voting in your thousands, and, I'm proud to say, we have a winner.
After a grand applause, an elf presented me with a translucent orb. A quick photo shoot later and I was off stage. It went by in a flash and I didn't know quite what had happened. I'm a winner? Of what exactly?
That's it. All you need to know is that if you can see it, then you can trust it. The tricky things are what Donald Rumsfeld called the unknown unknowns. You asked me what it is like to be an immortal. Everyone's preoccupied with being when it is, in fact, the distribution of matter that is the matter. Being is a light switch. We are like musical notes. We're all the same, there or not there. What makes us interesting is how we are together. What you see before you is the engine room of the world you know, the subconscious of planet Earth. Here you can see the butterfly effects ripple across the world as delivery after delivery redistributes the fate and nature of everything in the universe. Nothing turns to something and something to nothing. Waste in our realm becomes resource in this one. It is how a sentence is structured that gives it value, is it not?
Noms troth weffinas.
What?
Nothing.
It's basically like the Matrix, but more camp and Christmassy. It's a sanctuary built by myself, 72,000 acres of natural preserve for pure imagination. This is my greatest artwork. My child. I created it fairly serendipitously, though, but I do not believe in accidents.
What do you believe in?
I just do my job, mate.
Why have you brought me here?
I confess I've not been 100% honest with you. I've been interviewing a number of interviewers like yourself over the last few months, and none have come up to scratch, but the elves seem to have approved of you. I think it's time to show the world there's more than a 9 to 5 and a decent retirement package. I will open this realm I have created and change reality as we know it. How I will do that? That's down to you, Sonny. You will be the mosquito that spreads the word. It amuses me. You spent your time here asking me about my magical methods, but it is people like you who really can give something to every household in the space of an evening. Everything can be yours. Congratulations.
No one reads or believes my column.
You what?
I churn fantasy for a living, Your Grace. I could say there's a new plane of existence where imagination can be kept like a pet dog, but they'd be more interested in what shampoo you use to wash your big bloody beard. Glossy pictures of the perfect life and good housekeeping that don't exist is what all nosy punters want, so they can compare their lives and make small talk at work. I give people a facelift, so they can have a permanent smiley mask on like everything's okay. I shield reality from a diminishing readership with a big floppy fake scandal between people who are fiction. I bake burnt bread and sell it as if it was perfectly cooked, even if it's hiding in plain sight. I'm a myth maker, embellishing propaganda like cake decoration. I'm a semi-political waffle merchant. I'm not a journalist. I'm an author. I'm the anti-truth. That is my poison apple to you, Your Grace. I don't know what's good or bad, right or wrong, but I do know what sells papers. And one last thing. What would Santa Claus be like as a journalist? He'd get the sack. And it turned out it's L'Oreal that Santa uses to keep his beard fresh and fluffy, because we at the Post certainly think he's worth it. The article was on Oprah's desk the following week and released at the agreed strategic moment before Christmas. I thought of my time with Santa. The article was an unmitigated success, unheard of on our back channel. The only problem was Alan Titchmarsh was credited as the writer, and when I tried to tell everyone it was me, no one believed me.